As soon as your husband departs on a business trip, do not dare to wash the floors, the fortune teller advised, her fare paid by Maria. But when would she verify this? And before we continue, please tell me your country of origin and your age. Enjoy listening. Maria was 52 years old. She was short, neat, with a slight stoop from carrying her perpetual bags and bucket. Her hair was cut short, dyed a modest chestnut brown. Her eyes held a weariness, not a bitter one, but one of acceptance. Her husband, Alexander Nikolaevich, was 3 years her senior. Once a bold, decisive leader of the pack, he was now a respectable man, slightly heavier, with graying temples, wearing glasses and a tie. He worked for a firm and traveled on business. Their son was grown, married, and lived in another city. I'm visiting once a year with his wife and grandson. Maria always laid out a lavish table, retrieved the holiday china from the cabinet, and told herself, "My life is not in vain, seeing what a good boy my grandson is growing into." Life flowed smoothly. Mornings were for work in the polyclinic's accounting department. After work, it was the grocery store, dinner, and cleaning. Alexander would arrive late, sigh heavily, and set his briefcase by the wall. "Don't touch the documents there." Sometimes he would speak about the firm, the management, or these young people who don't understand anything. Other times, he would remain silent, engrossed in the news on his phone, his face serious. Maria was accustomed to it. Her husband prioritized his work. She managed the home. That's how it was, and that's how they lived. They rarely argued. Alexander might raise his voice if something displeased him, but he never raised his hand. For this, Maria always offered silent thanks to fate. Her childhood had been different. Her father could strike her and hurl a plate against the wall. She was content with a quiet life. Her back ached a little, her legs felt a bit sore, but these seemed like trifles compared to having a home, a husband present, and a growing grandson. That day, it all began with an ordinary request. Maria was returning from the market. Her bag was heavy, as always, laden with potatoes, cabbage, and a discounted chicken. Boarding the bus, she squeezed with difficulty between people, gripping a handrail. The bus lurched. Maria swayed as usual, nearly hitting someone with her bag. "Careful," someone grumbled from behind. "Excuse me," she replied softly. At the next stop, an elderly woman boarded the bus, short, thin, wearing a long scarf with faded floral patterns. The scarf was tied strangely, covering nearly half her face, leaving only her dark, piercing eyes visible beneath the folds. The woman hesitated at the ticket validator, fumbling in the pocket of her old bag. Coins jingled, but it was clear she was short. "Child," she addressed Maria with a surprisingly clear voice, "I'm short by 12 rubles. Can you help me out, or they'll put me off?" Maria sighed. She disliked being approached on public transport, but she couldn't refuse. "Here you go," she said, pulling out her card. "Tap it." The old woman tapped, and the validator beeped. The bus pulled away again. Passengers shifted. Some grumbled. Others chatted on their phones. The old woman didn't move away. Suddenly, she reached out and grasped Maria's wrist. Her grip was firm, surprisingly so for her age. Maria flinched in surprise. "What are you doing?" She tried to pull her hand away. The old woman leaned closer, her dark, intensely focused eyes fixed on Maria's face. "When your husband departs on his journey, do not wash the floors," she whispered, but clearly. "Do you understand? When he leaves, no rags, no buckets, not in the morning, not in the evening. Endure it, and you will live longer." Maria flushed. She felt embarrassed. "Madam," she exhaled, "let go. People are watching." The old woman released her immediately, as if she hadn't been holding on at all. She stepped back, leaned against the handrail, and closed her eyes. Her face became blank, like any ordinary tired old woman's. Maria stood there, feeling the pulse beneath her fingers where she had been squeezed. What was that all about? Imagine that, not washing the floors. To whom did she say it? She smiled to herself. Cleanliness was as natural to her as breathing. At the next stop, the old woman alighted without a backward glance. Maria watched her go and suddenly noticed there was no one on the platform but herself, though this struck her as odd for only a second. The bus moved on, and Maria's thoughts returned to cutlets and dinner. The next day, Maria was occupied with her usual routine: work, the polyclinic, prescriptions, patients with their endless requests. "Sign here, please." The queue at the pharmacy. Everything was as usual, but the thought of the strange old woman kept returning. She remembered how she had held her wrist, how she had looked at her. There was no hint of drunkenness, no obvious madness, but rather a peculiar certainty. A fortune-teller, Maria thought. Real or pretending? What difference does it make? She said what she said. On the day of his departure, Alexander was agitated, rushing from room to room, checking tickets, recalling whether he had unplugged the iron, looking through his wallet. "Will you see me off?" he asked, putting on his coat. "Of course," Maria nodded. "How could I not?" She always saw him off to the bus for the airport or the train station, depending on his destination. He spoke little on the way, only throwing out a couple of phrases. "I have an important meeting there. If it goes well, I'll get a bonus. Just please, don't waste money." "Am I a child?" Maria replied softly. "You know everything is accounted for." At the bus, he embraced her somewhat formally, a bit stiffly. "Well, that's it," he said. "Don't miss me too much. I won't always be able to turn on my phone there. Meetings, you understand?" "I understand," she replied, as usual. The bus pulled away, leaving behind a cloud of exhaust fumes. Maria stood for a moment longer, then turned and walked home. Her mind was filled with ordinary thoughts. Should she stop by the store, buy some milk, take out the chicken from the freezer? The fortune-teller had almost faded from her memory. Almost. At her apartment door, Maria paused, turned the key in the lock, and entered, taking off her shoes. Silence. Without Alexander, the apartment felt exceptionally quiet. She went to the kitchen, put the kettle on, and surveyed the floor. On the light linoleum, dark smudges were visible here and there from shoes, from bags, from the ordinary flow of life. "I should wash it," she automatically told herself. "I dislike dirt." Her hand instinctively reached for the bucket standing in the corner, but at that moment, like a flash, the whisper resurfaced. "When your husband leaves, do not wash the floors." Maria froze, standing in the middle of the kitchen, her hand extended towards the bucket. Suddenly she felt a chill run down her spine. Not fear, no. More a strange sensation that she was about to do something wrong. "The old woman from the bus," she muttered, as if justifying herself. "She spouted nonsense, and now She chuckled, but didn't reach for the bucket. "All right," she decided aloud. "I can skip it once. I'll wash it tomorrow." The kettle whistled. Maria made tea, took a roll from the bread box, spread a small piece of butter on it, and sat by the window, watching the courtyard. The courtyard hummed with its own life. Children chased a ball, old people sat on a bench, a young woman walked her dog. Nothing out of the ordinary. She drank her tea, cleared her dishes, glanced at the floor again, and thought once more that it didn't look good. "What's stopping me?" A thought flickered. Just fill the bucket. 5 minutes' work. Yet, an invisible thread held her back. "Tomorrow," she told herself firmly. "She said not to wash, so I won't." Maria twirled a finger at her temple. "Am I getting old, listening to the first person I meet?" She walked to the entryway and picked up the trash bag. "I'll take it out," she decided, "and get some fresh air." The stairwell was empty. Maria descended to the first floor, glancing briefly at the door of her neighbors, a young couple whose television was often loud late at night. She went outside and tossed the bag into the bin, lingered for a minute, looking at the sky. It was gray and overcast. On her way back, she noticed water on the landing in front of her door. Not a puddle, but damp streaks that hadn't been there a minute ago. Maria stopped on the step. Her heart suddenly beat faster. "I must have imagined it. I just didn't notice," she tried to reassure herself. But as she drew closer, she saw a thin trickle of water seeping from under the door, forming droplets. With a sudden movement, she unlocked the lock, flung the door open, and ran into the corridor. The first thing she heard was a rustling and a strange hissing from the kitchen. She ran there, and the scene presented itself immediately. A fountain was gushing from under the sink. A thin hose connected to the siphon had split. Water spurted out in a stream, spreading across the floor, reaching the table, and from there to the electrical outlet. The kettle's cord was already lying on the floor. The plug was sticking out of the socket. A line of water was gathering near it. Good heavens! Maria exhaled. Reflexively, she lunged for the valve that shut off the water supply under the sink. She fumbled with the rusty handle for a few seconds until it finally yielded. The stream gradually weakened. Then she pulled the plug from the socket, moved the cord away, grabbed an old towel, and began wringing water into the sink. Only when the floor had dried somewhat did she sit down on a stool, lean her back against the wall, and feel a tremor run through her. If I had been washing the floor 10 minutes ago, she understood with sudden clarity, I would have been standing in water, and this cord, the water, the electricity. She closed her eyes. The face of the old woman from the bus flashed in her mind. The dark eyes, the firm hand, the drawn-out words. Maria swallowed. Coincidence, she said aloud. Just a coincidence. Hoses break. It's old. But the word coincidence sounded unconvincing. That evening, a plumber from the management company arrived. A large, tired man in a blue uniform, a pipe wrench in his hands. What have we got here, a flood? He grumbled. Maria showed him under the sink. He squatted down, examined the hose, and shook his head. Strange, he muttered. They rarely burst like this. Meaning? She asked. The plumber pulled out the hose, turned it in his hands, and ran his finger along the edge. It looks like it's been cut here, he said, not looking at the owner. See, the edge is straight. If it had burst from age, it would look different. Maria shivered. Cut? She repeated quietly. You mean with a knife? Well, I won't assert that, he shrugged. Maybe it got scratched at the factory, or maybe someone snagged it, but it's quite a clean cut. And it was replaced recently, wasn't it? She clarified. I don't recall our crew replacing it, the man mused. Did you call anyone? A private master? No one. Maria shook her head. The plumber shrugged again. All right, he said. I'll put a new one on now. I'll take this one to show the management. Let them have a look. But my advice to you, turn off the water to the sink at night, just in case. He finished his work, filled out a form, and left, leaving behind the scent of metal and a damp rag. Maria walked through the kitchen again with a dry mop. The floor gleamed as she liked it, but she felt uneasy. She walked to the window. The streetlights were on in the courtyard. Near the entrance, as usual, 2 teenagers were smoking, arguing about something. She remembered the plumber's words. Like it's been cut. Who would cut a hose in her kitchen? Igor was a neighbor, living 1 floor up. A quiet, unmarried young man, he often helped the residents, carrying a bag, fixing the internet. Maria had given him keys a couple of times when she went to visit her son, asking him to water the plants and collect the mail. She gave a slight shudder. Keys. Igor had a copy. It's probably nothing. She tried to dismiss it. It's probably nothing. You can't suspect everyone immediately. The night was restless. Maria tossed and turned, waking at every creak, listening intently. Doors slammed in the stairwell. Elevators hummed. A distant siren wailed. Everything was as usual, yet everything seemed louder than normal. She dreamt of water flowing through the kitchen, and she was walking barefoot in it while a cord hung above her. The cord slowly reached for the water like a snake. She woke up in a cold sweat, glanced at the clock. 3 a.m. Dreams, she decided. Nerves. She went to the kitchen, turned on the light, and the floor was dry, the hose was in place. Everything was calm. She poured herself a glass of water, took a few sips, and suddenly thought, what if it wasn't an accident? What if someone really did cut it? She tried to recall who had entered the building in recent days. Herself, yes. Alexander. Igor, the last time was 2 months ago, before she went to visit her son. And yet, the plumber had said, it was cut. A simple chain of thought formed in her mind. The hose was cut. Water flooded the floor. There was an electrical cord on the floor. A person enters, starts washing, places a bucket, making the spill worse, touches something, hits the cord. Short circuit, an electric shock. An accident, she thought coldly. Her heart leaped. She remembered Alexander talking about insurance in recent weeks, bringing some papers. Sign here. It's for the mortgage. If something happens to me, it will be easier for you. She had signed without reading. Later she had thought a couple of times that she should look at them carefully, but put it off. What if it's not just about him? Something might be included about me too. A flicker of unease. Maria sat down on the stool, clasped her hands. Nonsense, she told herself. This is paranoia. But the thought, strangely, did not leave her. In the morning, Maria decided to visit her neighbors, the ones with the camera by their door. Vladislav, the man from the third floor, always recorded everything. Who entered, who left, who passed by. A year ago, when a stroller went missing from an elderly woman, his recordings helped find the thief. Maria knocked. His wife, Lyudmila, a young woman in a bathrobe, with a child in her arms, opened the door. Masha, hello, she smiled. Something happened, Lyudochka, Maria began hesitantly. I had a flood yesterday. The hose under the sink burst. The plumber said... She paused. Anyway, can I ask one thing? You have a camera above the door, don't you? Lyuda nodded. Yes. And what? Could you check who entered and left the stairwell last night? Between 7 and 10, did anyone approach my door? Lyuda looked surprised. Did something go missing? No, Maria replied. I just want to be at ease. The young woman shrugged. I'll call Vladislav now. He's an expert on these matters. A few minutes later, Maria was sitting on a chair in their hallway, looking at the monitor connected to a small recorder. Vladislav rewound the recording. Look here, he said. Yesterday at 6 p.m., you entered with your bag. Half an hour later, your husband left, and you saw him off. See? You're going down together. Maria recognized herself and Alexander, their figures in their jackets. Vladislav fast-forwarded the time. At 7 p.m., 8 p.m., no one, just the usual neighbors. But here at 9:10, Igor. A familiar silhouette appeared on the screen. Igor was ascending the stairs, holding a bag, and stopped at Maria's door. Maria felt her insides clench. He came in, she asked. Yes, just a moment. Vladislav zoomed in. Yes, here he is inserting the key. He enters. It's 9:12. And did he leave? Maria's voice trembled. 9:24. Vlad played it further. Here he is leaving, locking the door. His bag is empty now. Nah, probably took out the trash or something. I didn't ask him to come in, Maria said quietly. Certainly not yesterday. Maybe your husband asked him, Lyuda suggested. Men get all sorts of ideas. Maria didn't answer. She watched the monitor, where Igor calmly closed her door, checked the handle, and left. Vlad, she said slowly. Could I have a copy of this segment? Gladly. On a flash drive? No problem. He shrugged. There's nothing secret, just need a flash drive. I have one, she nodded. I'll get it now. Back home, Maria sat on a chair in the kitchen. In front of her lay the flash drive. Next to it, her phone and a piece of paper on which she had been absently drawing circles. Her head was buzzing. So, she tried to reason, as she was accustomed to doing in accounting. Fact 1, the hose was cut or intentionally damaged. Fact 2, Igor was in the apartment yesterday evening. Fact 3, I didn't ask him, but my husband possibly did. The next day, she went to work. There, she faced the usual routine. Nurse Vera was talking about new patients. The chief physician was yelling in his office. Someone brought a cake for a birthday. Maria pretended everything was as usual. She counted numbers, entered data, checked reports. In the evening on her way home, she passed the police station. She stopped, looked at the door. A sign? Police department. People went in and out. She stood for a minute, then decided, not today, tomorrow. And she went home, where a surprise awaited her. Igor was standing at the door, a bag with some folders in his hands. Oh, Maria Petrovna, he exclaimed. as if by chance. "I was just coming to see you." Everything inside her turned cold. "Why?" she asked dryly. "Well, Alexander Nikolaevich asked me to pass something on," Igor stammered. "Documents. He said you would deal with the insurance, the apartment. He handed over the bag." Maria didn't look at it. "Put it over there." She nodded towards the cabinet in the hallway. "I'll deal with it later. And you, Igor," she hesitated. "Did you see the water in time?" Maria slowly turned her head towards him. "How do you know about the water?" she asked. He blushed. "Well, I was here. Sasha called and asked me to drop by to check if everything was all right. I thought maybe you'd forgotten to turn off the tap." She looked at him, unblinking. "Did you touch the tap?" she asked. No, I just peeked," he replied hastily. Everything seemed fine. He fell silent, noticing her gaze. "Igor," Maria said slowly. "And who cut the hose?" Silence stretched. He flinched, just tried to smile, but the corners of his lips trembled. "What hose?" he attempted to joke uncertainly. "I don't know anything about plumbing." "The plumber said the hose was cut," she continued calmly. "The camera recorded you coming into my apartment. Your husband called you yesterday evening. The insurance is for the event of my death. Are you trying to say this was all a coincidence?" Igor paled. "Maria Petrovna," he whispered. I didn't. You've misunderstood everything." He took a step back. Maria took out her phone from her pocket and pressed the record button. "Perhaps you can explain then," she asked evenly. "Otherwise, I'll go and explain to others." He noticed her movement. "Are you recording?" he asked, his voice becoming thinner. "Yes," she said, not hiding it. "Igor, I don't want to accuse you, but I deserve to know the truth. Who cut the hose?" He swallowed, sat down on the edge of the cabinet, and grabbed his head. He finally exhaled. "Sasha." Alexander Nikolaevich said, "We need to remove the old hose and install a new one, but before that, cut it a little so it leaks. I thought it was just, to get the repair done, to make the management company move." "Did you cut it?" Maria asked. "With a knife," Igor whispered. "Just a little nick. I didn't think. I didn't know why." He said, "You'll be at your son's then. I only came to your place because the door was supposed to be locked. I thought no one was home, honestly." "And yesterday?" she clarified. "Why did you come in?" "He called." Igor looked at the floor and said, "Check if everything's all right. Maria should be home." I came in. The water wasn't flowing yet. I peeked, looked. He said he would call a plumber later to change everything. And then you wrote to him about the flood. He said, "Good, it finally burst." I thought it was all. I really didn't think that," Maria asked softly. "That I would get electrocuted while washing the floor." He flinched as if slapped. "He invented that himself," Igor mumbled. "I knew nothing about the electricity, I swear. Just the hose. I'm an idiot. I needed money. He said he would help with the loan." Maria listened, his words seeming to pass her by. It was difficult to comprehend that all this conversation about her life, about her potential death, was real. "And how much did he promise you?" she asked calmly. 100,000, Igor whispered. "For him, it's probably pocket change, but for me, I rent an apartment. I have a car loan." Maria turned off the voice recorder. The room became very quiet. Outside, someone slammed a car door and a dog barked. "Igor," she said finally, "leave." He looked up. "Maria Petrovna, please, leave," she repeated, "and get ready. You'll be called to a place where they don't talk for money." He shivered. Are you going to the police?" he whispered. "I'm still alive," Maria replied. "And I have recordings and cameras, and a head on my shoulders. Go." He stood up, swayed, as if he wanted to say something more but couldn't find the words. He left, closing the door carefully. Maria was left alone. In the evening, she walked past the police station again. This time, she didn't stop. She just went inside. It smelled of paint and paper. Behind the desk sat a portly, middle-aged duty officer in uniform. How can I help you? He asked, looking at her over his glasses. I want to file a report, Maria said. About attempted harm. He raised an eyebrow. Please, have a seat and tell me. She spoke for a long time about the hose, the plumber, the camera, the insurance, the conversation with Igor. She showed him the flash drive, played the recording on her phone, and handed him the policy. The man listened with more intent than she had anticipated, posing clarifying questions several times. He took notes, then scratched the back of his head. It's quite a complex situation, I must admit, he stated, but certainly not a dead end. We have security footage and your neighbor's confession. There's solid ground to work with here. Do you believe you can pursue this? She asked softly. We'll conduct a thorough investigation. He nodded. We'll formally invite your neighbor and your husband as well. We'll also request the insurance documents. If everything checks out, initiating legal proceedings is very much a possibility. He looked at her intently. Are you prepared? This isn't just a simple matter of paperwork. This is about taking action against your own husband. Maria met his gaze, and suddenly she felt the fortune teller's words echoing nearby. Live and be well. I am ready, she declared. I want to live. Alexander called that evening. What have you been up to? He demanded, foregoing any pleasantries. His voice was sharp, laced with anxiety. I'm getting calls from the police asking me questions. Have you lost your mind? Maria held the phone to her ear, her eyes fixed on the window. Outside, snow was falling in a slow, steady descent. I haven't done anything, she replied. I've only told the truth. What truth? He exploded. Do you have any idea what you're doing? I was respected at work, and now you're destroying my entire life. You started it first, she said calmly, when you decided my life was just an insurance policy number. For a few moments, silence hung heavy on the line. You're delusional, he rasped. You've made it all up. These are just your grandmother's silly stories. I don't have a grandmother, Maria replied quietly. There was only that fortune teller on the bus, but she, it seems, understood better than you what might happen to me. I'm thankful to her. Go to hell, Alexander began. But she terminated the call. The phone fell silent. Maria placed it on the table. The police investigation proceeded at its usual unhurried pace. It was possible it might be dismissed, reclassified, or postponed. Such was the nature of the system. However, for Maria, the most significant turning point had already occurred. She had seen the direction of those she had trusted and had taken a decisive step away. She filed for divorce, summoned a handyman to install new faucets, checked the wiring, and replaced the lock. No one but her held any keys. She continued to wash the floor frequently, but on the day her husband departed for a business trip, and when the elderly woman in the bus had grasped her hand, for the first time in her life, she allowed herself to forego her customary ritual. And it was this seemingly small, even foolish, act of not washing the floor that became the boundary between living life as it happened and choosing to live it intentionally. One thing was crucial. That night, when water had spread across the kitchen floor and the live wire had nearly touched the puddle, she hadn't knelt there with a mop. Instead, she had gained a chance to begin a new life, a life that was perhaps late in starting, but undeniably her own.